A documentary called The Devil We Know was just released and describes the poisoning of a community in West Virginia by a DuPont plant.
It was used in consumer products, manufacturing products, and the applications were endless. These Teflon and Scotchgard chemicals permeated the living world.
And what is particularly interesting of this case is we're not talking about a fly-by-night company. We're talking about one of the most prestigious companies in the United States, a company that started the practice of employment safety, a company that has the best labs in the world. This case did not interest just the movie industry because it was very dramatic. Interested also me as a scholar of companies to try to understand why a company that in principle is one of the best companies in America end up doing something that exposed turned out to be so bad. And so in a paper with Roy Shapiro, what we try to do is trying to understand whether this was a mistake, was lack of knowledge, or was a more systematic result of a cost and benefits analysis. And while, of course, we cannot prove intent, what we do find is that they did have plenty of information, they did do a cost-benefit analysis, and while we don't have all the numbers of the cost-benefit analysis, projecting what they do provide as numbers, we come to the conclusion that unfortunately, polluting was a very rational decision. The profit-maximizing decision for DuPont was to actually pollute the Ohio River and kill people. The question, of course, is what do we need to do to avoid a repeat of that situation? One obvious answer is trying to be more aggressive in enforcement. Unfortunately, that's very hard because the information is not available. Most people did not know what PFOA was at the time, did not know whether it was toxic, and certainly were unable to prove the degree to which it was toxic. And so to get around this problem, why don't we extend the whistleblower statute that has been introduced in 1986 for fraud against the government to actually environmental damage. Without inside information, it's close to impossible to know how dangerous these substances are. And we know over and over again of companies that do have this information, and not only they don't disclose it, but very often they portray to the outside world the opposite. This was the case for cigarette producers back then. This is the case recently for Exxon, and this was the case also by and large for DuPont as well. The second point is we want somebody inside the corporation to take responsibility. All too often in large corporations, big and unpleasant decisions fall through the cracks because nobody wants to step up and take responsibility, and everybody feels morally justified that the responsibility is of somebody else. And after the Enron scandal, we had a law introducing a requirement for the CFO to sign financial accounts and be responsible for the financial accounts. I think there should be somebody inside the organization, somebody who is responsible for the environmental decision a corporation makes. The third idea is to penalize settlements that don't disclose the underlying information. One of the benefits of trials is that they do provide reliable information. They are expensive, but they do provide information that is used by society in many, many ways. We want that information to come to light. The parties involved might have a private interest in settling without disclosing that information. That's the reason why I think that settlement without disclosure should be taxed more heavily. Our list of suggestions might seem a wishful list that will never be implemented, but I do think that documentaries like the devil we know, make people aware of how costly it is not to have a better environmental protection. And while I don't expect any change in the next few months, I think in the long term, this pressure will make a difference, and we will have a better enforcement and a better protection of our health.